and state governments are issuing hundreds of billions of dollars of government bonds to pay for their unprecedented debt. Private investment to fill this funding black hole for infrastructure projects is highly problematic. It's simply being crowded out. In addition, given the difficult economic environment, super funds do not have the appetite as part of their asset allocation strategy to invest large sums in greenfield projects with factors such as a level of patronage and the illiquid nature of such investments proving too much risk to shoulder. Instead, such funds are eyeing off distressed infrastructure assets which are already operational both here and overseas as a preferred form of asset class to get the returns for their fund members. As demonstrated by the previous coalition government, not all reforms come with a big financial price tag, such as the reform of the waterfront. If Mr Rudd wants to do something constructive to attract private investment, in addition to transparency and giving confidence to the private sector of what they're investing in, Mr Rudd should use the crisis, use the political opportunity presented by the crisis to cut through the mountains of federal, state and local government red tape. The economic crisis has provided a unique political opportunity to reform highly complex and expensive tendering processes, the myriad of planning and project approvals, and the financial instruments and risk sharing for major projects. Now, I accept the difficulty across all administrations, state and federal, to get some harmonisation in those areas. But we have got a crisis which can be used by the politicians to cut through the vested interest to get some consistency across those areas. Very little. That's the hard yards. It's not sexy, but it could be of great consequence for many in this room and elsewhere who've got to make decisions about where they invest money and how much they invest and all the rest. The Minister has stated that building infrastructure needs will require a partnership between public and private sectors. However, the economic downturn, as you will all know, has led to a massive reduction in available credit financing. Unless the federal government intends to take combined federal and state government debt to $500 billion, the government's response to the $60 billion shortfall in its projected infrastructure commitments appears to be a wishful reliance on the private sector. Every effort must be made to encourage and inspire the private sector to invest in these sorts of projects. But given that the government has failed to provide clear performance standards and accountability for its own infrastructure projects, how can it be reasonably expected that the private sector will contribute $60 billion or more to government projects? No investor would be forthcoming with their funds unless they understand why investment projects have been selected, how they will be accountable and what their investment returns will be. These are characteristics of effective public-private partnerships that the government has manifestly failed to establish or apply in the nation-building program. Can be done, could be done, should be done, must be done if we are to do what is necessary to see infrastructure strongly be a part of us coming out of this global financial crisis in some sort of really front-foot positive way. It's also important to note that the $60 billion shortfall in the government's infrastructure projects is nearly twice the total amount of PPP projects estimated to have taken place in the 25 years from 1980 to 2005. So the government is hoping that somewhere the private sector, in the midst of a global squeeze in credit, will provide nearly double the amount in PPP funding provided over a 25-year period. This is more a fancy than a concerted and robust approach to ensuring Australia has the infrastructure it needs to compete in the future. It's all very well to have plans and to spruik those plans for 3 years if you don't do the work to make those plans operational and effective. And that is what I'm seeing on so many fronts: the school funding program, the computers program, the attempt now to encourage investment into this sector, even areas such as the emissions trading scheme and others. They are not informed by what will involve and engage and give effective assurance to the private sector to make investments and to have a real keen sense of the rules that will apply and the government policies that will unfold, or the plan that the government has in a broad sense for infrastructure in particular. Setting an overarching national infrastructure strategy would be a constructive starting point for the federal government and COAG. It would drive regulatory reforms. It would inform private investment in economic and social infrastructure. It would inform immigration policy, water policy, and even influence the development of policies such as the emissions trading scheme, where ill-informed policy is already putting the brakes on crucial investment in electricity generation and other areas. Even before passage of the bill, there are private equity firms around the world turning off to our energy generation sector and many other parts of the economy because of the uncertainty, and not just the uncertainty of our scheme being well ahead of the rest of the world. More importantly, it is the design of the scheme is going to strip so much money out of the balance sheets of companies, their capacity to raise funds in the market will be deeply compromised. This is not understood. If they had a national plan where they could see where all of these things fitted together, you would get other areas of the economy and other informed opinion helping to shape lots of these policies so we get a coherent strategy which will give confidence to investors. In the face of mountains of debt, Australia needs an infrastructure roadmap, a coordinated program that provides value for money through high productivity and maximum private sector involvement, transparency, vision, innovation and excellence. A coordinated program of future projects that have been subject to rigorous analysis and are consistent with a realistic long-term funding program. Thanks very much.